preside over the panel, I think, and take some of your questions. And this is very much, I think, the idea of a roundtable is that it's a discussion with all of you as well, including Pradeep if he's still here. So this is a good time to involve him in the discussion as we go forward. There's rather a lot of people on this panel, so we will be asking all of them slightly different questions, and hopefully those of you who are entrepreneurs can tell those of you who are investors a thing or two, and maybe you as investors can talk to the entrepreneurs as well about what it takes for you to be a social entrepreneur. But before we begin, I wonder whether we could just go down the panel. You can all read the biographies in your pack, so I'm not going to introduce them by reading out their biographies. But I wonder whether you could go down the panel and just say your name, the organization that you work for, and what defines you. So not in life, in this kind of, in the context of this panel. So am I an entrepreneur? Am I an investor? Am I somewhere in the middle? Am I someone that's creating the conditions for this stuff to happen? Just where you think. And Guadalupe, I will start with you.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Guadalupe and I work now at the European Investment Bank. And it's a little bit difficult for me to define myself because I have kind of different hats. Today I am here as the EIB, which is in fact an institution that supports impact investing, so supports social entrepreneurship through the financial sector. But I've also been a social entrepreneur, and I've worked as an incubator supporting social businesses. So I'm here with different hats. So I think in the discussions I may bring a little bit of a cross comparison around the different roles that someone can have in the sector.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sofia, and I work for Telefónica. I'm actually part of the CSR team, but I'll try to give a whole vision of what Telefónica is engaged with regards to incubating startups worldwide. That means that basically we do both sides, the classical startup financing, and we think that by nature, like 15% of the startups that come to the calls from the different, and I can mention areas where Telefónica is asking entrepreneurs to join the investment ventures, I would say 15% more or less are social or have any sort of social impact. And that's why the CSR department, which I belong to, is sort of an internal partner in Telefónica trying to push all these opportunities. Not only that natural percentage, but also we are in charge of promoting the social entrepreneurship through specialized academies, some of them external, like for instance, you may have heard in Spain about Teia, which is the first incubator that is investing on techie-based or IT-based entrepreneurs. And also we are in partner with someone who is in this table actually, who is Fundación Creas, and I won't say anything, he'll have a chance to. So basically we deal with both sides, the classical set of entrepreneurs and the social ones, and within the first group we've already realized that there's social impact and potential social impact to be developed by the classical startups.
Thank you. My name is Francisco Polo, and I'm a social entrepreneur. So that means that I'm going to break the rules that Luis just gave us. And I'm going to tell you about my passion. My passion started when I was very, very young, when I was a child, because I was bullied at school. So that gave me a strong sense of injustice. And after all that happened, and something that I could overcome with years, I decided I was going to stand up and fight against injustice. So I've dedicated all my life to that. And at some point, I was able to put together my passion to fight against injustice with my passion for technology. And in 2010, I founded Actuale, which was a platform that empowered people to fight for the injustices they wanted to end up with. It was so successful that it became the fastest growing platform of its kind ever in the world. That called the attention of a very similar platform in the US called Change.org. And as we were both social entrepreneurships, we decided to merge and found together the largest petition platform in the world. And that's how I became director of Change.org in Spain and director of global expansion of this amazing platform that it's empowering people around the globe to make happen the change they want to see.
Thank you. My name is Teia. I'm one of the founders of an NGO in Romania called Future Plus. It started 8 years ago as an NGO, non-profit, but in the meantime, we also started 2 social enterprises. One of them is the Canvas Workshop, and the other one is Recicleta, one of the winners from last year. Apart from, let's say, the NGO and the social entrepreneurship hat, I'm bringing also the perspective from my background, which is both a multinational, corporational, in terms of how to implement sustainability in their core business, and also the public side, how to develop strategies of sustainable development nationwide.
Hello, my name is Rodrigo Aguirre de Cárcer, and I also have several hats. Today I'm currently launching a 50 million euro venture capital fund for social impact focused on Spain as well as Europe. Before I was a social entrepreneur as well. I'm an Ashoka fellow, and I went through basically all of the steps of launching a social business, having a lot of impact, and finding that there was absolutely no access to financing for this business to grow. So basically, this is one of the reasons why I'm behind this fund today and why we're creating such a large fund, because we believe that it's very important to achieve large scale for impact to be achieved, and to be able to accompany projects all the way through their growth cycle, because currently there's just too many gaps in the capital markets for a company to grow until they're self-sustainable or they have access to traditional financing. So happy to talk about both later.
Well, I'm Francisco Soler from CREAS. CREAS is an organization that invests in companies that create social value or environmental value. We were the first fund to be created in Spain around this topic some years ago, and we think that for the first term of the next year we will have invested 1.5 million euros, and we are planning now to create a bigger fund for the next year. I mean, we will be the little brother of Rodrigo, I'm sure, but we will be a good family in this field. And for CREAS, it's very important the mission that we believe that in the meeting of the social sector and the venture capital sector is the best way to create a sustainable future.
Thank you. I actually should have asked you to guess which ones you thought were the investors and which ones you thought were the entrepreneurs. Anyway, so as I said, the title of this session is What It Takes to Become a Social Entrepreneur. So we're going to think about what it takes from an entrepreneur's perspective, as well as what it takes to support the entrepreneurs. And I have to say, I personally also agree with Pradeep that the definitions discussion is not necessarily ever the most helpful one. However, having said that, I am just going to start by asking perhaps Guadalupe to talk a little bit about what it means to be a social entrepreneur. Could you pass the microphone, please? And how she would define it, or not necessarily how you would define it, but could you just give us a bit of sense of the field and the way people talk about this, just so we all know what we're talking about, we can get it out the way, and then we can get on with the discussion. Thanks, Guadalupe.
Yes, so I think this is one of the main challenges, as we just heard about the sector, that there's no a consensus of what it means to be a social entrepreneur. So not only in the academia, that's a lot of researchers that are coming up with different definitions, not only in the practitioners and the different actors. So I'm going to give you my definition and then maybe give you a picture of what other definitions could be. So for me, social enterprise is an enterprise that has been created by a social entrepreneur with two main objectives. First of all,
to have social impact to resolve a social problem or an environmental problem, but at the same time using business models and business skills. So in that area, there's a lot of different potential ways of doing it. So I would say that in order to put like a picture, and if I had a picture, I would be able to show you very clearly. On one hand, we have NGOs that work with the only purpose of having social impact with a non-for-profit model. And on the other hand, we have the private sector that is using companies and business models to get returns. And in the middle, there's a lot of hybrid options that could combine in different ways these two aspects. So if we go and talk to investors, and depending also on the kind of investors and impact investors, they will tell you that only if you have created a for-profit organization to solve a social problem, you would be a social entrepreneur. So you need to be a for-profit organization because they need to invest in you somehow. So you need to have some shares to sell. On the other hand, there are other big actors, like for example Ashoka, also Mohamed Yunus is a big defender of the potential of having social entrepreneurs being non-for-profit organizations that simply have a sustainable, viable model, so that they can offer products or services, or they have a way to finance themselves that is not only based on public subsidies. What is important, I think, for today's discussion is that there are different models, but this is becoming really big. And we've seen it today. There's a lot of entrepreneurs around Europe and around the world that are coming up with new ideas in a moment where there's a lack of public money. So we need to come up with new ways of solving these social problems that we're facing. So if we can combine it and do it viable, I mean, combining the business mind with and the business tools with having this, will to save the world, change the world, do something to close the social and environmental gap. I think that's what I would, start by saying, and I think that what we're going to discuss today is going to be really mindful as well in terms of how to support them.
Great, thank you so much. And hopefully we can move on a little bit from the definitions discussion, but I think that was a really helpful way for us to think that it's very broad and there's lots of different ways of looking at this. I'm actually going to go to, I've decided we've got passionate Francisco over here and investor Francisco over here. We're going to go to passionate Francisco first. And I was actually going to ask both of you whether you could say, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? What does it take? If you could all just keep your answers as short as possible so we can get some discussion going on as well. Thanks.
Well, first I wanted to reply to Guadalupe, because I think there's a matter of nuance that is important there. You just talk about that social entrepreneurship has to be for profit, and I think that's a problem. For example, in Spain, there is not a big environment for social entrepreneurship, and big companies like Change.org are having a lot of problems explaining the model to the people. And I think that's part of the problem, explaining that we are for profit, because we are not. We are for benefit. We try to generate benefits to expand and to accomplish our mission, but nobody at Change.org is putting in their pockets the money that we make. So that's important. And I also believe that that's important because there should be a discussion about how we should invest in social entrepreneurship. Because, for example, last year we had a round of $15 million investment. And part of our compromise with our investors is that first, we are not going to sell, and that we are not going to go public, because we want to keep the mission. So if we treat social entrepreneurship the same way we treat other companies, that we are going just to grow our companies to sell those, then they can change the mission of the company, and that is not social entrepreneurship. So we should be more accurate on that, because if we don't do that, then people is not going to understand what is social entrepreneurship. What it takes to be a social entrepreneur. I think it takes a lot of, you need to be a risky person. But I think that people usually understand that in the wrong way. You need to be risky, but you also need to be smart to reduce those risks. And I think one of the things that entrepreneurs usually in Spain, and I think around the globe, they don't understand, is that starting up is not just going crazy with your product. It's about understanding your your customers or your future customers. So usually people go crazy about building this amazing product that is going to save the world, or providing this amazing service that is going to help so many people. They don't spend time in trying to understand what are the needs of the customers. And I think that's the key. You need first to understand the needs of the customers. Then you need to analyze if that need is okay to solve or a really important need. And thirdly, you need to know if that need is a need they are ready to pay for in order to fix it. When you have a customer that has a need that is very important and that they are ready to pay for to get it fixed, then you have a problem that is worth solving, and then you are having a product or a service that is really going to become an entrepreneurship, a business that is going to help solve that. So you need to be risky, but you also need to be smart to fix that kind of problems.
And Teia, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely, with everything was said so far. I would say that in terms of understanding the problem and coming up with a solution, for me, because I'm very passionate about sustainable development and how these different areas are interacting one with another. Many times we come up with a solution that solves one problem. And while creating that solution, actually we create more problems. We solve that initial problem, but we generate others. And I think one of the projects presented here today showed how we started from several problems and generating one solution. And I think we need to pay attention to how we solve those issues around us and take into considerations social aspects, environmental aspects, and make sure that our problem does justice to all of them. Not just to the economical leg, but also to these different aspects. This is what we did in Recicleta last year. It was appreciated as being innovative, that we were able to solve in the same time with the same solution also a social issue on a small scale, together with a transportation issue and together with a recycling issue. One in one go. And we didn't generate more problems that we had before.
Okay, thank you. Before, I think, Rodrigo, question for you is, do you invest, or would you invest, or where do you think it's important on the scale of an individual or an idea? Do you invest in an idea or a concept, or do you invest in someone like, someone that's a bit risky, that wants to try things in different ways? Is it more about the social problem, the idea to solve it, or is it about the person?
As an investor, we look more into social business more than social entrepreneurship. So we define a social business through our own criteria, but I won't go through that. Idea or person, I would say that both are very important. If we had to choose, I would choose more the team. Because we're really obsessed with scale in Vivergy Fund. By the way, it says Reemprende, which was the first name, and we've changed it recently, so I put it in pen. So it's Vivergy Fund now. And the reason is basically there are many disruptive ideas that are beautiful on paper, and we've seen many of these in Spain in last years. Very beautiful disruptive ideas that never really reach scale and therefore never really achieve social impact. So we believe that we don't favor the most innovative, most disruptive ideas in our fund. We just want solid ideas with very solid business plans that are scalable and that create social impact. So maybe they may be somewhat less sexy than the best idea in the world, but in the end, we think that we'll get more done in the long term.
Thank you. And Francisco, do you invest in the sexy or?
Well, I think it's important to find the sexy companies, but I agree with Rodrigo that the team is very important, because when you're building a company and you see how the entrepreneurs come to you and propose how to make their company grow, you have to really test their capacity to make it. To do it. So I think people and teams instead of ideas. But sometimes you have to be prepared to meet these sexy companies. You have to look for the innovative ideas, the innovative visions, because sometimes the very best projects are joined. Sexiest people and sexiest companies.
Excellent, thank you. We should all bear that in mind. Sophia, your role in supporting entrepreneurs whilst you may invest or fund them is probably slightly different to the investors on this side of the table. So when you're looking to support entrepreneurs, what are you looking for, number one? And secondly, could you tell us a little bit about the process that you go to? Because I know your organisation is good at supporting entrepreneurs.
And quite complex as well. But
okay, we'll give you a couple of minutes.
Okay, or less than that if I can. Okay, yes, we are at a prior stage of the investment. Actually, I would say that we help entrepreneurs to be ready to go for investment. Actually, that's part of our success, that we find co-investors to those companies that we are helping at the earlier stage, which is the incubation. I guess that the process about selecting the companies is pretty much standard. What we take into account, and probably you all have that in mind, is, of course, the team, and it's already been said. I mean, you just need to bear in mind that people have just a pitching time, like I have now, to convince people about their idea, their team, and the potential of that. So people, team is essential. Because we are an ICT company, a digital telco, we do have more interest in those that can eventually become commercial partners. So we don't look at the entrepreneurs just only from a strictly business point of view, but also we aim to become somehow commercial partners. So if ICTs are part of the solution, that makes them more attractive for us. We also believe that technology is a key element that adds up. Why? Because scalability, which is something that we are all looking for, is mainly achieved sometimes by technology, and that's another interest for us. The business plan is also very important. I mean, we're looking for sustainable companies, and with regards to for profit, whether for income, if you want to make distinction between those two aspects, it depends. If we're investing in entrepreneurs, we are more for-profit companies, but when we try to invest on social entrepreneurs, it is very important for us to know that the profit distribution is going to be slightly different from the typical companies. That's something we bear in mind, but we try to make that compatible with the fact that eventually other sort of investors may want to be part of that journey. And we need to think how different sort of animals live together in these investments. Let me just give you an example, and I'll turn that back. Like we have a partnership with the UK government. Wyra, which is our academy, startups academy, came to an agreement with the UK government to co-invest in social entrepreneurship. Now, of course, Wyra, as a private company, beyond, I mean, those agreements, has its own interest to explode and to make that happen, that the company raises up in value and eventually attracts other companies to be partners, commercial partners, whereas the government, of course, has more public agenda sort of interests in terms of what sort of social impact we can prove with those. So I think we need to think openly, because the ecosystem of investors is quite different, and we need to be innovative also in making up investment models that let us live together with different targets.
I'm delighted that you just said the word ecosystem, because I'd literally just written down on my piece of paper ecosystem, and how do all of these things fit together. So I wonder whether actually we could come back to the investors going on down, then we'll come to Guadalupe, whether you could all just say a moment about the ecosystem, and then I'm going to come right back to the entrepreneurs after that, because the ecosystem is there to support you, and so it's interesting to hear from you as well. what you feel is lacking in terms of a connected system of support, not just for you as entrepreneurs, but also for your colleagues and people that you work with. But before we do that, let's start at Francisco at this end, and work our way down. A couple of words, your thoughts on the ecosystem, and also the process of the how you invest in the different kinds of enterprises and social businesses.
So the question is about ecosystem or how we do invest?
The question is about ecosystem, but that connects to how you invest.
Okay. Well,
I would hope.
Maybe we agree in this roundtable about the ecosystem. Some new players are coming in the field now in Spain, at least in Spain. New funds are like Rodrigo represents. But what I appreciate is that every day new entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, show up in new events. For example, last week in the Spain Up Startup Summit, I appreciated that there were some called social entrepreneurs, and it was very surprising for me because this event was 100% devoted to technology, internet, and so on. Recent years. So for me, it was very interesting to see that so-called social entrepreneurs or companies devoted to create environmental value were in this important event. So this is my opinion about the ecosystem. And regarding the process of our investments, we pay importance to scalability, as Rodrigo said before, but also on the governance of the company. I mean, it is very important. For us, it's very important to make money, Francisco. I think the social entrepreneurs should make money. I think the most important thing is what you do with your money and how you get the money from your customers. So for us, it is very important to find a sustainable, financial sustainable model in the social entrepreneurs. The third point that we take into account is the innovation. We pay a lot of attention of the information that comes from other countries, because, for example, today we are in a pan-European event. For us, it's very important to find several innovations around several topics in this field for us, because many people in Spain is trying to replicate these ideas that have succeeded in other countries. So innovation, it doesn't mean that you have to reinvent the wheel, but you have to bring an innovation from other countries, from other region, and to implant it, to establish it in Spain. And I give you time to talk again. Just 2 minutes.
I agree with Fran. I think the first thing that came to mind...
Could you stop agreeing, please?
Okay, so let me disagree.
I'd like some discussion and some debate here. We all need to say something else.
Okay, so to be frank, in Spain, when you said ecosystem, in my mind, what popped up was what ecosystem? There's no ecosystem here, and there's not much ecosystem going on around the world yet. This is a very nascent industry. Social entrepreneurship is starting to gather some traction. Impact investing is even more in an infantile stage, and everything is growing on a more individual level. There's a lot of actors. There's a lot of increasing traction of actors growing, but the relationship between the actors forming an ecosystem is something that in Spain is not existent yet, and in most countries is still not established. I mean, we're still at stages where we're defining what is impact investing, what is a social entrepreneur. I mean, we still need more time to talk about an ecosystem, and this is something that Fran and I know well because we've been working together for quite a bit, trying to develop an ecosystem here in Spain. And the conclusion in the past years has been that there's just too much work to do on an individual level for us to really start sharing. I'm going to try and tie that into how we invest and make a focus on the importance of the ecosystem. So basically, the way that basically we invest, we focus on 3 main areas. We look for projects that are that have as their mission to solve a social problem in a more effective or more efficient way than what is currently done in the market, in the target market. We secondly look at financial return. So this has to have a business model that may not be profitable at the moment of investment, but that at least proves that that there is a model behind it that might reach or should reach profitability in the end. And thirdly, we focus very much on scale. So is this a very scalable model? We like projects that have a proven concept on the social realm and and the vision of a financial model that may not be profitable, but that we can somehow see. In this way, we can understand what it costs to replicate the impact being conducted through maybe one clinic or one school or several offices, and see how much that is going to cost us to multiply that times 100 and make it worldwide. But going back to the ecosystem, one of the things that we feel is a bit more lacking in some of the social entrepreneurs that we know is maybe business acumen in general and financial modeling, and sometimes just the mentality of thinking very big. And it's very logical because, I mean, there's no access to capital that allows them to reach very big scales. So it's something that happens in Spain in entrepreneurship in general. People just want to be the leader of a small market, maybe a regional leader in Europe, the guys that really think far ahead, but no one's really thinking about Silicon Valley, no one's really thinking about world domination, which is not a great word for social entrepreneurship, but anyway, world leadership. So that's something that we stress quite a bit and that we try and help. Within this ecosystem, since we see that these are the main weaknesses, the way that we not invest, but the way that we help our companies or throughout the investment cycle is not only with financial capital, but with a lot of social and intellectual capital. There's a lot of knowledge that can be shared, especially on the business skills side. There's a lot of doors that we can open, especially in that area. And so, therefore, we have an extended network. We get very hands-on with our projects, especially when we need to. Social entrepreneurs, on one side, have many advantages versus normal entrepreneurs. They are much more autonomous. They're self-driven. They understand very well the social problem, and therefore they don't need so much that supervisory role that you have in traditional venture capital. And they're also very conservative, so they're much more risk-averse. We have entrepreneurs that we offer more money than they want, and they come to us and they say, I'm not really sure if this is going to be too much for us right now, which is something that you don't see in traditional venture capital much. So those are great advantages, but for to cover those gaps, basically we have to accompany a lot more beside the financial aspect. And for this, to tie it to the ecosystem, finally, it's very important that we are not the only actors. So we're extending a network of mentors, of sector experts that basically create a team around our projects that will accompany them throughout their cycle and help them wherever they need. But there's much more that can be done on a more industry level. So from education, from having basically kids and people in universities start knowing about social entrepreneurship and seeing that this is a viable way of making a living, to more financial actors like Creas and like Vivergy, and to basically other collaborators around social entrepreneurship, be them incubators, accelerators, etc. So. That would be it. Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you there. I'm just gonna be really clear before we move on to our entrepreneurs. There are lots of different ways, and people I think use the word ecosystem a lot. But when I was asking the question, I was certainly meaning in terms of a connected system of different kinds of support for entrepreneur. That's what I was talking about, just to be really clear, and I think you were as well. But how do we all connect? How do we support entrepreneurs or social businesses or whatever they are? From the beginning of their life to being grown-ups, how do we support these things in their life cycle? Okay, that's where we were talking. And as an entrepreneur, Teia, do you feel supported? Do you feel like there could be some more? Disagree, please. And I hope you're all thinking of things that you're really angry about or disagree, or you just think they're talking rubbish, or you think, why on earth are they on the panel? Or you completely agree with them and you'd like to go and work for their company, or maybe you could be investing. So think about all of these things in the meantime. But Teia, go ahead. Do you feel supported? What could be better? How could they help you more?
The question of what is lacking. And after listening the presentations from today, I would say that we need more entrepreneurship websites. I don't remember the name of that initiative. Please help me. Okay, there. And we need more do schools, definitely. And also we need funds. But the type of funds that you're talking about and the type of funds that I was lucky, I was one of the 10% that got in contact with networks and investors, networks and so on, are still looking at this very late stage type of entrepreneurship, at scaling up and everything from that level on, most of the ones that I met, yes? And On the other hand, I met a lot of local initiatives and entrepreneurs that are at a very, very early stage. And usually for this type of people and initiatives are very few money available. From my experience in Romania, I don't know how is it in other countries. And while understanding the need and the urgency in terms of sustainable solutions, so you all mentioned scaling up. On one hand, I agree. On the other hand, I disagree because I think that also they are valuable. The local solutions will never be, let's say, the type of model that you will be able to scale up. And this doesn't make them less valuable because they don't have this scaling up potential. And it doesn't make them less needed. Maybe we need some models that will channel, let's say, financing also to this small-scale initiative that will only help maybe a village or a small city or a small region, and that's it. Because there is a solution to a specific problem that they have. And usually you don't find this eagerness or openness from investors in this type of solutions. So I would say that also this is needed. But
and so we maybe need to put
need
to put Sophie in between you two because this is too big a jump from you to you. But if you could have some support, maybe you could eventually get to Francisco over here.
So where we
But no, you go ahead.
I couldn't disagree more, so I want to.
Yeah, please.
Couldn't agree more.
I couldn't disagree more.
So I mean to be some sort of justification for what you're saying. No, I'm going to try to answer because we've identified those gaps, and it's true that at the earliest stages, startups, there's not that much. What we've done in Telefonica is through a program called Think Big, which is basically social entrepreneurs which are provided with funds to launch their social program. And it has also supported like 3,000 entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, not necessarily the sort of startups that you guys might be thinking of to get a stock on, but those are the earlier stages that need some sort of support. We are also investing because there's another set of entrepreneurs who come from universities. And we've developed something called Talentum startups, and there are two models within that. Either you are a developer, a techie from the university, and you have a good idea that you would like to get a prototype of, and what you really, really want is not that much money, but what you really, really want is technology and all the support to develop that. Remember, we are a technology company. And there's another group, which is the startups long run, if you like. It's 6 months of support. And what they do is they become part as a stash of one of those entrepreneurs in the Wira academies. And there they have also the chance to develop their idea. So yes, I think we are developing new models to support the different stages of entrepreneurs. At least I can give you these two examples.
Before we go to very angry Francisco and also Guadalupe, I just want to ask questions, thoughts, comments. If you want to think of, yeah, nice. Okay, at the back. Okay, so before you answer that, we're going to take a couple of questions here as well. So that was, you assumed that her program was with Unlimited? Is that what you were saying? Okay, all right, so we'll come back to that in a minute, Sophie. There's another one here.
Thank you. I would be interested to learn a little bit more about your feeling of the trends in the impact investing scene, both from the social entrepreneurs and the investors. We're active in between Europe and the US, and we see that, for example, in alternative experiential education, suddenly in the US, due to the market situation, a lot of normal investors are actually moving in. They don't mind that there's impact. They like it. They sleep much better, right? But they're still interested in the return. I mean, look at your investment round and the investors. And so I'm wondering a little bit whether the impact scene here in Europe that is still relatively small, what's driving the trends, right? And shouldn't the trends to a certain extent also be to form certain markets that the usual investors are not going into? And are we doing a good enough job there yet? Thanks.
I'm going to take these questions in groups so you can answer in your groups. There's one here.
So I'm going to now take the chance to ask the question I was going to have asked Pradeep, which was to elaborate a little bit on what the social equity is. So I'm wondering whether there is a bit of a crash between traditional investment and what's happening with social impact. So traditional investment is focused so much on exit strategies and economical growth. So how do we actually change that into being social growth and not exit strategy, but impact?
Right, and Pradeep's also here, so we can make this into more of a discussion. And there's one more here before we give you the opportunity.
Thank you. I would like to ask, how do you measure the social effects in terms of this invest in the social enterprise? That means how you measure how it's better for the welfare in terms of better health, in terms of decrease the unemployment. You understand, this is more for you.
This was more for who?
For Rodrigo, that is part of the...
Francisco, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Francisco,
Yeah,
passionate.
I'm getting sick. Oh, I'm so hungry.
So you're going to go first, and then we'll go to Guadalupe, who's got some answers to the questions, and then we're going to go to Rodrigo, and that's how we're going to do it. And try and answer the questions as much as possible, and then we'll come to Sofia.
Yeah. So I couldn't disagree more with narrative of social entrepreneur needing something from the environment, the ecosystem, or the public sector. And we usually talk about money or advice. If you are a real social entrepreneur, you don't need any of that. So I think, and I disagree profoundly with the question, is not what is lacking out there, is what we need to get rid of. Because when I was at the early stages of my social entrepreneur, I had a lot of barriers put by the public that made me unable to have that global vision and to be the global leader with my company. My company grew from 0 to 2.5 million users in Spain in only 18 months. There's no tech company in Spain that has achieved that, not even 20. So what happened there? And why did I have to sell my company? Well, it's very simple. It sounds ridiculous when you tell it, but it's such much difference. In Europe, we have a lot of internet legislation. And there is a national legislation that comes from my directive, from a European directive, that says that if I ask a user to share his data with someone he wants to share the data, and in my case, it was, imagine you are a user of Actuable or Change.org, and you are signing a petition of Greenpeace, and I want to have a checkbox saying, do you want to get in contact with Greenpeace because you can work together? So basically, we are sharing data with Greenpeace on that aspect. So European legislation says that if I want to have that checkbox has to be unchecked. So that means, this is ridiculous, but that means that 80% of the people are not going to check that box. While on the US, they don't have that legislation. So they can have the checkbox pre-check, so they have the check. You will say, why is this important? Well, because that's how I make money. I make money putting together and helping nonprofits to get in contact with people who are very interested. So while Change.org in the US, they were making 80% of the profits, I was only able to make 20% of my capacity. So I had no chance to compete with Change.org, while I was having a much stronger growth than Change.org. So when we talk together, I say, okay, you buy me and I get rid of this pain. So that's what I say. So, and this is happening all the time. So it's not that there is no talent in Europe. We could be having the next Google or the next Facebook. It's the public and it's the legislation that is putting us away from that. And this is happening even today in Spain, for example. We are having a reform of IP legislation, and they are talking about this thing that probably you don't know, but it's Canon ID. What they want to do, they want to make Google pay to all editors because they are not able to adapt to the new models because they are publishing their news on Google News. And they are going to prove it. And Google is just going to shut down Google News in Spain. So this is what is happening. So I don't need any help. I can help myself. Just want the barriers to go down.
Okay, great. So Francisco needs nothing. This is very helpful. Thank you.
Go away. Go
Investors, stay away. That's what he says. Guadalupe.
I'm just going to respond to a little bit to this.
Just respond to this a little bit, and I wonder whether you might also touch on Alice's question as well.
Which was, I think that's better because we work through, we are intermediaries. I mean, we work with intermediaries. So I think for that specific question, it's better that the investors answer, and then I maybe complement on that, on the way how we support investors. Okay. So, no, I just wanted to first of all say to Paco that I really like change.org and the model, but that's not the only model. And that what I was trying to say when I was defining what it is to be a social entrepreneur is that it was, on the contrary, inclusive. So I believe that also non-for-profit, if they have a business model, which I mean that they are viable and sustainable, for me, they are social enterprise, social entrepreneurs. So, and then on the other hand, we have the very extreme that combine that are looking for returns and that are very profitable, but if at the same time they are solving a social problem, for me they're also a social entrepreneur. And then because there's all these different models in this hybrid area, that's what I consider social enterprises. There's some that need help. I think you are probably the exception to the rule. So, and in that sense, and because I quit my job at the EIB, and after working at the EBRD, working a lot with microfinance, which in fact for me is like the role model for social entrepreneurs because they combine this will to solve a social problem with a sustainable model. I quit my job and I came to Spain and I was involved in social enterprise incubators like the Impact Hub, and I worked at the university, and what I realized is that there's a lot of people around there that are willing to support social entrepreneurs in different ways. And this is like a fashion somehow. So that's why maybe there's a little bit of confusion around the definition. So you have big business schools and big universities, and this is an example that are really trying to support social entrepreneurs by providing mentoring, by having a space where they can work, by providing courses, and by training the next generation leaders that they can also become as social entrepreneurs. There's the public sector, and there have been a number of representatives of the Spanish social public sector from the government level and also from the Comunidad de Madrid level that have been very interested in coming here because they are developing new solutions. So that's another part of the ecosystem. That's what I call ecosystem, the different actors. There's a lot of co-working spaces, there's a lot of social enterprise incubators, there's the financial sector, that is another of these components, through small microfinance, like some of the cajas were doing some microfinance for social entrepreneurs, and there's two examples here. There's the private sector, like Sofia is representing a big company that is supporting social entrepreneurs. So what I think is that there's a number of different actors there from all the different perspectives that are trying to support social entrepreneurs, a little bit because it's a fashion and also because they think it's the future, as I was saying before, to maybe solve some of the social problems that we haven't been able to solve with the traditional models. The problem is that they are not connecting and talking to each other because we all talk different languages. So the private sector, thinks something about the NGOs, and the NGOs have a little bit of a bad perception about investors, and there's no common language. So we need things like the social stock exchange, or I created a company where I wanted to map. It's called A Planet for Change, where I wanted to map who's there, who's doing things, that how can they talk together. And I think that's the way I see the ecosystem. I think there's a lot there, but there's not enough dialogue or collaboration, and there's a lot of replication of efforts and a lot of different things that are being done that are then not scalable. So that's what I wanted to react, not maybe.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Great.
There's no way of tying into that. We can address that later.
We'll come back to yours.
And Fran can probably answer that better than I have because he has more experience with social impact measurement. But anyway, so Teia, you were mentioning, it's not all about scaling up. What about seed capital? You were also mentioning that the place for local businesses and not everything on a global level. And I completely agree. There's a space for everything, but we are doing what we are doing and working in this space because we have a vision. And basically, I think I want to go back to why is impact investing such a cool thing, and what can it promise to looking into the future. And I think what's amazing about impact investing is that we take the traditional model where we have capitalism that makes money and philanthropy that gives money to solve social issues that are not being tackled or not even looked at or addressed by the corporate world. What social entrepreneurs have started to bring up is this bridge that Guadalupe was talking about before, and impact investors are enabling this bridge. If you look at all of the problems that are in the world and the way that they're being solved by traditional philanthropy, there's a huge gap. So there's a lot of things going on, but the gap is amazingly large. So if we really want to tackle these issues and eradicate them on a global level forever, we need a lot more muscle than what is currently being done. And this muscle cannot come from philanthropy. If you look at the assets under management of private equity funds, of insurance companies, of pension funds, etc., you see that if philanthropy is this, that's it's a ball like this. We're talking about 50 times larger. So we have to somehow make this mainstream and tap into the real actors that have the muscle to make this work. And what's amazing is that through impact investing and social entrepreneurs, we are finding a way where social impact and financial returns can go hand in hand, and therefore there's no need to have any trade-off. So there's a place for this, but we really believe that at Vivergy we really believe that we have to make this mainstream, and for this to work, the way that the world works today is through money. So one of the main things that we're going to need for mainstreaming impact investing is to get on board the pension funds, the insurance companies, and the corporate banks. This will not happen until we have interesting returns and interesting exits. And one of the things that we need in the sector is more exits, more sharing of what the exits that are being done, and some star exits as well. We have no Facebook in social investment, and that would very much help us to tap into these much larger pools of capital. So you were mentioning also before, so how to translate impact social growth. So the more financial side and the more social side both have a place. In my vision, in the vision of our fund, a lot of what is being done today through philanthropy will be done through traditional market mechanisms. But there will always be a place for traditional or for hybrid social models, be it because the companies or the ideas are still so nascent that they cannot somehow tap into a sustainability model that can be financed by investors that are interested in profitability, or be it because basically it's a model that will never be financed by profitability and it will always be financed by philanthropy. But we think that out of the pool of what is today being done through philanthropy, there's maybe 75 or 80%, something like this, that's going to be able to be replaced through impact investment.
And I'm going to stop you right there, because I wonder whether actually we could ask Pradeep if he would like to respond to Alice's point as well, just for the benefit of the discussion here. Because I think there are several different parts of this discussion which are a bit disconnected.
Yeah, to pick up on Rodrigo's point, in fact, most of us in the impact investing industry do talk about a financial floor and a social floor. Some of the investors are finance first, but with a social overlay. Some of them are definitely social first, with a financial overlay. But I think what we're forgetting here, actually, is something slightly. We're not going to get there overnight, but actually, the social is financial, and I think that's what you mean. And I think that's what we forget, and we're not really going to get there until our accounting system changes, until we're able to actually put impact onto the balance sheet. We're not really going to engender. But it's actually coming. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, I'm sure of it. But I think it will, because I think my kids and other kids and everyone, we're kind of moving in a direction that is kind of unstoppable. So it's not there yet. But don't forget that the social has a financial price. And if we can measure that effectively, and we will. I mean, it's taken us centuries to get to an accounting system. We've got 3, and we don't, IFRS and UK GAAP and all the rest of it. We will get to a stage in which that can happen. And once that happens,
things on the panel, so I'll come back to the panel as well. But we have some questions. This is an obstacle course, it really is.
I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have too much time to go on all this crazy stuff about getting financing, reading a lot of stuff. For me, for example, in the last period of time was difficult even to read any news. So I have a very straight question. Tomorrow, who I contact to get a loan or to get into a special program or to get the money?
That's you. Okay, great. Anyone else have any advances on that question? Great, there's one over here.
I'm not going to ask you guys for money, so you can relax. No, my question is, and following up on the previous question before that one, how do we distinguish between supporting projects that are worthwhile and creating zombie social ventures, which are those who should have died but are kept alive because we're supporting them? My impression is that too much support creates these zombie startups, these zombie social projects, which should have never been born, having been born should have died, and we're refraining their entrepreneurs from moving on to another project that might be better. So we're not doing a favor to anybody by creating zombies. And how do you distinguish between a startup that is worth supporting and how and when do you stop creating the zombie?
Do you have anything in mind?
No, this is my so this is a problem I face every day because I run an incubator. So I'm a zombie creator myself for sure.
Thank you. So how do you distinguish between how do you exit? Maybe is a question. How do you not get in there in the first place? Okay, but I'd quite like you to talk about how you exit because I find that very interesting too.
Thank you. Very shortly, I'm representing the Social Affairs Ministry in Spain, and I would like to open or ask you a question. What is the answer you get from public sector, from politicians, from political parties, from those ones who are taking decisions? I kind of imagine from the faces I'm seeing, no? But I would like to know your feeling, because the decision makers are there, and we need your ideas to get to those places. Thank you very much.
Right. So I have some ideas. I feel like Guadalupe might talk about the public sector potentially a little bit. I'm actually just... Who wants to start? Who wants to respond first? I'm not going to direct you.
Let me say something. When we were preparing the roundtable, there was some questions on the floor. Someone mentioned weaknesses and errors. And I wouldn't talk of weaknesses of errors and of the social entrepreneurs, because we all make mistakes, even investors, for sure. We joined a European association named European Venture Philanthropy Association, whose mission is to build a European ecosystem around impact investing. And their concern is to show all of them, to show we all in this table, in this field, to learn from each other. So we, as the social entrepreneurs, have to learn each from each other. So my advice, Paco, is that we all do unique things. Yeah.
He was being provocative.
Yeah. But well, and there were a lot of questions about the growth, the exits, and so. So, for example, this organization, the EFPA, the EBPA, tried to show us how to make successful exits. So we in Spain have to learn how the German people, the funds in UK, have succeeded to exit in social companies. They are trying to show us how to measure the impact when you invest in rather different companies, one devoted to education or the other devoted to waste management. It is rather difficult, rather different to measure the impact when you invest in so different companies. And regarding the public support, it would be very interesting to find a new instrument like it was founded in Spain, like ENISA. We all knew the successful instrument that has been ENISA to fund internet companies in the last years. I don't know if like 500 million euros in Spain devoted to internet companies, and many have died, like Conchita has said before. So it would be very interesting to find some central government public support, because some regional governments have been born, like in in Catalonia or even in Andalusia that supports Telefonica. So to the question of this fellow in the first row, believe me that the investors in Creas, for example, are ordinary people. They are very reasonable people that want to see how the companies we invest grow, how they reach their impact they are trying to reach. And that is the most important thing when the impact investor decide to invest in a company. So that's our experience in Creas.
Can I add something?
You can add a quick one, yes.
Okay. So please contact both of us. I think we're complementary also in our investments. The size of the funds makes for different types of investments, and we collaborate, and we both share the same vision of creating an industry here in Spain. So you can contact both of us. Okay. Secondly, public sector in general. There's been a lot of talk in the recent years and not much action. But in my case, I have to say that we're very happy with the government because our main investor is Fondico is through the government. So they have indeed taken a strong bet on social entrepreneurship through our fund. And I'd love to see more initiatives like that, maybe through ANISA types of vehicles or something like this, for more direct types of investments. But in our case, the government is really helping make this a reality, this fund a reality. In terms of zombies, how to avoid them? I mean, in the end, money talks. I think that is one of the good things about the traditional market mechanisms and the financial systems, that they're quite ruthless in a certain sense. So I think that there's been also a problem in the past of incentivizing too many people to be entrepreneurs and too many people to be social entrepreneurs. And there's so many conferences about this, and it's so easy to motivate people around this sort of dream. And incubators just, they have their own agenda sometimes. They just want to create as many projects as possible, but they don't think sometimes in the long term. And this makes people sometimes waste their time and their dreams sometimes fail, and then who knows what happens to them in the future. So in our case, what we do is we tie in our deployment of money to what is really going on in the company. So if we invest 2-3 million euros in a company, and the company needs it for this money in 2-3 years, there will be deployments every 6 months that will be in a function of the achievement of financial returns and the achievement of the social metrics that we previously defined, and I'll get to that question now. So if this company is not proving to do what they promised to do, basically we start cutting off the money and the investment stays where it is. So this is a way of making it, of actualizing it all of the time. Yeah, and then finally, in terms of measurement, because we didn't get to that, this is a very large debate in terms of how to measure. It's very difficult to measure social impact, and there's been a lot of changes in the industry over time. In the past, it was a lot more about turning social impact into economic return, as you were mentioning before, which is a long-term thing, but currently it's just too complicated and it's very time-consuming, what they call the social return on investment or these sorts of metrics. Currently, what is being done is you have a financial return, and there's a huge array of different financial returns in function of the type of fund. So you have funds that go for capital return, market returns that are maybe 30%, like a traditional venture capital fund. These are mostly working in emerging markets and mostly through microfinance. And then you have funds that are almost at capital preservation. So they don't give a return, but what they give the investors is their money back. So that's a huge return. From zero to the whole money back, that's 100% return in a sense.
Yeah. Okay, I'm actually going to stop you there. Because I just want to come down the panel a little bit, but maybe we can come back to this later on. But there's a question about pipeline, and actually, some think it's quite good to have lots and lots and lots of entrepreneurs because actually, or lots of people thinking of ideas, and then slightly less will develop them, and we need to think about pipeline who are coming to you. So there's a question as to whether that's a good thing or not. Teia, do you want to respond to, you don't need to respond to all of the questions, but any of these points. Just pick up a couple.
To some of the points that were raised.
Sure.
In terms of public support and barriers. Unfortunately, I don't have, let's say, good examples, at least from the recent past. And I will speak mainly from the experience in my country, in Romania. There are some funds coming from European level through structure
points. Just pick up a couple.
To some of the points that were raised in terms of public support and barriers. Unfortunately, I don't have, let's say, good examples, at least from the recent past. And I will speak mainly from the experience in my country, in Romania. There are some funds coming from European level through structural funds. And in 7 years we just recently, it was closed financing line for social enterprises as they are defined by the Romanian legislation, as actually they are not defined. And this is some of the things that should be improved. Basically, a social enterprise is any type of company who employs or who creates jobs for disadvantaged people. And that's it. And we had about 200 millions in a financing line for starting up social enterprises. And when you looked up on the, let's say, the organizations that were accepted, I think maybe 80% of them were public institutions starting up their own social enterprises. And you had some doubts when you were reading, like, the Football Federation. The Football Federation starting up social enterprises. So, and the list is long. So I think we need to define better. There are some definitions and into the legislation at European level. Not all of this is applied at local level in each of the countries, and it should be, especially when you have this amount of money channeled into some more political interest right now instead of actually real impact enterprises happening.
And we just say on that point, we know that there's many, many millions more coming through the structural funds
into
in
the next round, 2014, 2000.
Even more than before.
We know. And especially because of this, we need to correct what is happening. And there are also a lot of issues that are still happening related to corruption and other type of interest. We have a model that could have, let's say, Recicleta could have scaled up easily just by having the model adopted by public companies and by waste management companies that are funded by public money. And this is not happening because this is it's a way in the country. The waste management companies are represented in the parliament. They are making the laws, and they are getting a lot of public money to finance inefficient waste management and recycling type of activities. They don't want efficient structures like we are providing. And it's impossible to fight them, unfortunately, at this level. So we're still at small scale. But this is with the public. I also want to say something about the star exits. I didn't know exactly what you wanted to say with the star exits, but if by star, do you mean only a very huge profit that is attracting other type of investors? Again, I would disagree. Because I think impact investment, it shouldn't be about, I don't know, dazzling profits that, I don't know, some social enterprise is creating at some point. I think it might happen, but these are the exceptions. And this is not the rule or the trend in this sector. Based on our own experience with social enterprise and also what I heard from other impact investors, you should also take into consideration, based on the presentations that I've seen today, I recognize the same enthusiasm that you have at the beginning when you put the financials. And you see how you get to profit from the second year or the third year. I'm smiling because I did the same as you did right now. And the reality is not like this most of the times. I was discussing with an impact investor from a fund, managing a fund in the Netherlands, who had the experience of over 10 years. And he said that the average time to get to profitability, it's about 5 years. 5. There might be exceptions to according to industry and to some enterprises, but this is the average time. When we talk about social enterprises and impact investors, especially because we are not looking just at the profit and we take into consideration social and environmental aspects, it's much more difficult to get to profit. Much more difficult. So put some extra time in there. Expect that your best scenarios will not happen like that. And that you have to keep pushing, that you have to be open and maybe do more pilots, change your initial strategy until you get to that, I don't know, not that amazing and star exits and star profitability, but to some level of profitability that will be enough to keep that company and that business model alive, because this is the way how you actually will achieve impact on long term.
Thank you, Teia. Francisco, how are you feeling about this now?
I feel we
You're
are talking
okay?
a lot about money in here.
Yeah. All right. Just a couple of lines, or a couple of words to answer some of the points, or just comment on some of the points.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to I want to disagree again with Guadalupe because
Great,
it's not
because
that
Guadalupe is going to have the last word.
Yeah.
So say
I'm
your
sorry.
piece now.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but I don't define social entrepreneurship the way I do because it's the model I have. It's because I really believe in that. You know me, and you know that I belong to that side of the society that is diverse. So I love diversity and the scale of race in the world. But I also love clarity because we need to differentiate a non-profit from a social entrepreneurship. So I truly believe that we need social impact together with benefit purpose, and we need to be clear on that. So that's my
you two
perspective.
can take this to the bar or to the
Yeah,
whatever
sure.
later
No
on
problem.
as well.
For tonight. Then there was this question about metrics, and I love the way that you put that question because you ask, what are you measuring? And I think that, again, it's the social entrepreneur who needs to think about this and to sell it to the investor. And not only for that, it's also to make sure you are not a zombie, as Conchita was saying. You need to be the first one motivated and determined to set your metrics, to analyze if you are having the social impact and the revenue impact that you have. For example, I'm going to talk about my company because it's the one that is at the reach of my hand, but we have 5 metrics at Change.org. First, we measure impact, and we measure impact by how many people experimented victory with their campaigns. Either if they started a petition and they won, or if they signed a petition and they won. And for example, we have measured that among the 80 million users we have in the world, more than 30 million have experienced victory. And we check that every month, and we are trying to get to 100 million users experiencing victory in the world. Then we also measure re-engagement, because it's not only about winning, it's about, because our mission is to empower people to know that they can change the world and that this becomes something that belongs to your everyday life. So if you want something to be part of your everyday life, you need to go back to that. So we're measuring also re-engagement. How many people are coming back to the site? And we're working on that, on trying to get people back to the site to win more campaigns. We also measure growth, because we have the vision to become the leader of the world of social change. So we want to be the biggest company, and we try to grow as we undergo our mission. And then we have two extra measurement keys. We measure our brand. So how many media impacts are we having, and try to grow that every month. And finally, the 5th pillar of Change.org is the revenue we are making. So we try to make more revenue to be able to expand to other countries, to grow our teams, to grow our IT people, to have a better platform. So I think this is something very important that the entrepreneur needs to take care of and sell to the investors, because then it becomes much easier for investors to put money in your.
And I'm going to stop you there,
Okay.
because I'd like to move on to Sofia and Guadalupe. Just 2 minutes each, if you wouldn't mind. I'm sorry. But just maybe a response to some of the things that have been said so far, or even just in this last part of the panel.
Thank you. I think there's one of the first questions was to Telefonica, asking why haven't we replicated that Wire Unlimited model in Spain? I mean, the way it happened in the UK is that it was actually an initiative coming from the government through Unlimited. And they were interested in partnering with Wire UK. Actually, we've had conversations with Unlimited Spain, but for the time being, our perception is that there's no, in the short run, opportunity to partner with the public administration to get that sort of finance. Actually, the amount the government put in the UK was 1.5 million pounds, and we put the same amount of money plus operating costs. So that sort of partnership is something that we would like to study if the case is, because the outcome of that partnership in the UK has been really, really good and productive. Not from a finance point of view, but on average, those guys are raising money at the same level, more or less, that other entrepreneurs from the Waira Academy. Okay.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Guadalupe if you could just give us one sentence, because of the vice president has just arrived, and so
just one sentence.
We're just having so much fun here.
Minute, just 1 minute, because I think. Okay, 2 sentences.
He says it's okay.
Because there's been this debate, and we talk about the public sector, and we talk about how can we support, and we talk about the ecosystem, and I think the EIB group is a model for how the public sector, because we are part of the public sector, it's a public institution, it's a multilateral institution, and in fact we have a model that combines most of the things that we have said here, but in a different way, because what we do is that we support the local institution, the institutions at local level, in each country, and sometimes by region or by comunidad autónoma in the case of Spain, that are already supporting entrepreneurship, in this case social entrepreneurship. And a couple of examples, we talked about ECO, that is supporting Rodrigo's fund. We also support ECO through lines of credit. We have lines with Sedeti, which is the one responsible for ENISA. We work with local microfinance institutions and local banks that have lines for social entrepreneurs. And we have another entity which is called European Investment Fund, something that was launched last year, which is the Social Impact Accelerator, to support impact investing funds across Europe. And then we also have a lot of activities around social entrepreneurship and impact investing outside Europe. And the model is how can we support those organizations that are already supporting social entrepreneurs to create the ecosystem that is lacking in some countries. And I think I need to leave
I have
the
to
floor.
say that was a perfect moment for us to stop on. We probably could have gone on for much, much longer, but thank you so much for respecting the time here. Guadalupe, Sofia, Francisco, Teia, Rodrigo, and Francisco, thank you very, very much for your input, insights, and disagreement. It was very nice. Thank you.